Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone. Let's go back into our seats, please. I know it's hard after lunch. Everyone is quite excited. Everyone is talking to each other because this is the important thing that we bring from these gatherings. It's the networking. So let's start with our third panel. And welcome back, everyone who is online. And we are talking about building capacity among professionals. And we will have in this panel Victoria Kaslik as the moderator from Terre des Hommes, Hungary. She will be introducing panelists, but the names are Judge Celso Manata from Portugal. We have Shona von Blix and Finneker, is that? From the Barnahus network, and Venera Sminova from the Carer Foundation. So, welcome all, and let's start. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Yes. So welcome back from lunch, and this panel will focus on an entire package which was part of the LINK project, namely building capacity among professionals. And I would like to start by introducing our panelists. On my left, Mr. Celso Manata, a judge from the Portuguese Supreme Court since 2024. Between 2023 and 24, a Deputy General Prosecutor of the Supreme Court of Justice. Between 2016 and 19, General Director of Reintegration and Prison Services. Between 2000 and 2014, a Public Prosecutor at the Family Court of Lisbon, with a large professional experience in child protection, and also with an international background as a former Vice President of the European Organization of Prison and Correctional Services, expert for the Council of Europe and the UN on Prison and Correctional Services, a member of the Committee for the Prevention of Torture of the European Council between 2005 and 2015, and honored with the title of Grand Officer of the Order of Merit by the President of the Portuguese Republic in 2003. I welcome also Shona von Blixen-Fineke from the Barnahus network. Shona has an extensive knowledge of the Barnahus and how it was adapted in different national contexts. She plays a leading role in coordinating and providing advice through bilateral and network exchanges. She has played a central role in developing and coordinating trainings in the context of the Promise project and the Barnahus network. Shona is furthermore an experienced project manager. With the background in communications, Shona previously worked for the US State Department and the EU and holds a master's degree in political science from Uppsala University. On my right, I welcome Venera Simeonova from Carer Foundation. Venera is a child psychologist specialized in parent counseling and coaching with a strong focus on improving communication between adults and children. She participated in several projects focused on children's and women's rights, with a particular emphasis on accessible justice and social support systems. My name is Viktória Kaslik. I'm a project officer at Terdezom, Hungary. By formation, I'm a jurist and an artist with a specialization of restorative justice. And at Terdezom, I focus on research in restorative justice and in following and co-facilitating the so-called child advisory boards, of which we are going to hear in depth in this panel. So, as a short introduction, I would like to address what was this work package in LINK project was about. Talking about two aspects of it. Firstly, about the training aspect of the project, where the objective was to build the capacity of criminal justice professionals and other relevant stakeholders on age and gender-appropriate procedural accommodations to promote the participation and protection of children with and without intellectual and psychosocial disabilities in criminal proceedings. As a result of this target, the so-called Equal Treatment Training Guide was born. I would like to share what was the content, or what is the content of the training guide, and also how the training guide was made, because it's really fascinating when we think about the multidisciplinary aspect that we are trying to tackle in many aspects of our fields. The training guide has as a chapter which is focusing solely on intellectual and psychosocial disabilities and trying to unpack the research results of it, talks about what is child development, and by sacrificing a whole chapter to it, it is positioning it as a crucial and critical aspect for justice professionals to be aware of the stages of child development, and also builds its communication strategies and engagement methods linked to the child development phases. And lastly, the guide, or the training guide, is largely focusing on the idea of individualized adaptation and the holistic assessment procedure, which is prior to an individualized adaptation. The guide was brought together through an extensive research and many steps involved between first the project partners, but then also when it came to national contextualization and adaptation, it was also the moment when the so-called child advisory boards on a national basis were involved to it, and these boards were consulted on the trainings, and it made it possible to make it more consolidated and embedded into these national contexts. Of course, after also organizing roundtables with national experts, and lastly, ending up in front of our expert panels. Now I would like to continue with the child advisory boards. This is a methodology and a very important aspect at Terre des Hommes. It is a platform for children to learn about their rights and to have an opportunity to express their perceptions in a more effective way. And in this link project, the CABs, I'm going to refer to the child advisory boards from now on as CABs. The objective was to ensure participation, safeguarding, and integration of children's view throughout the whole project implementation. Generally speaking, the CABs is always a heterogeneous group of children and young people aged between 14 and 25 with experience in the justice system or being in contact with the law or having an interest in the topic. The function of a CAB varies according to the thematic focus of a project, and the CAB members can contribute to a project in an advisory capacity, meaning that they can provide their input and advice on a project activity, on the design of the project, on the implementation of the project, and also on the deliverables. At our organization, we have three ways of referring to and explaining what a CAB methodology is and what are the theoretical frameworks upon which we built it up. One is the so-called Lundy model, which is talking about how to create a safe and inclusive space for children to participate. The second is voice, meaning that when we gather together in a board meeting, as facilitators, it is mandatory to facilitate the children's participation so that their voice can be expressed in the way that they want to express it. It's important in the organization of a CAB that the appropriate audience is there for their voice to be heard, meaning that it is crucial to make sure that the age group, for instance, is harmonized when we are talking about one board. And lastly, the influence, meaning that we have to follow up, we have to come back to the children, because as now we were talking today, it's many times really genuine interest that children come to participate, to give advice to our projects, and it's mandatory and very important to come back to them to report how did we implement their ideas, how did they come into fruition. So this is also another aspect. And we also refer many times to the Lansdowne model, which is more about when do we work with the children in the cabs and to what extent? And lastly, we also use the Hearts ladder, which is showing what is tokenization, for instance, what is manipulation, what is decoration when children is used in a project, whereas on the contrary, how does it look like when children participate in a genuine and meaningful way, and also going to the highest goal, when children can also lead themselves initiatives and project part, and they are the one who have the authorship, and they are the one who decide when to involve adults into the process. But now I would like to open the floor to discuss how multidisciplinary participation and the aspect of involving children and the interests of children appear in my fellow panelists' professional lives. And first I would like to address Mr. Manata. And I'm very curious about if you can bring us some successful experiences or interventions that you met in your professional career regarding children in contact with the law or being involved into criminal justice procedures.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much. Of course, being a judge or public servant in Portugal, I should speak in Portuguese, but I start with some words in English. First, say thanks to the organization for this invitation. It was I am very honored, and it was very good to be here during the morning. I must say thanks also to everybody that was the speakers. I learned a lot, so thank you very much. And I would like also to congratulate this initiative from APAV. APAV is an organization that was founded by magistrates. So you see, magistrates have special care about these issues. And with Fanacerci, of course, that is our colleague. And I hope that this symposium and the papers that were written for this symposium will be delivered for everybody, because there is a lot of people that will be interested. And for instance, my organization that is linked with a big scale organization is not here, so I think it's important to disseminate. So I changed to Portuguese, the Camões language, the most important Portuguese poet from the 16th century, para dizer que eu, embora tenha sido indicado como juiz e tenha sido honrado com uma grande apresentação, estou aqui mais como pai. Eu fui pai de um ser com grande incapacidade, 99% de incapacidade, que veio comigo 35 anos, fazia agora 36 anos, e portanto estou mais como pai, como presidente da Assembleia Geral de uma entidade que dá apoio a cerca de 300 pessoas com deficiência mental, e também porque eu sou deficiente auditivo, embora a minha deficiência seja fácil de resolver, porque com o aparelho está resolvido. Antes de responder à pergunta, eu gostaria de fazer algumas considerações sobre o que foi dito durante a manhã. E a primeira tem a ver com os destinatários, porque nós falamos sobre crianças, mas o que são crianças? Porque em Inglaterra ou na Escócia, criança é um indivíduo com 11 anos. A partir dos 11 anos, a pessoa é juridicamente imputável, ou seja, responsável perante o Estado e pode cometer um crime. Em Portugal é aos 16 anos, em Espanha é aos 18, em alguns países é aos 21. Depois é preciso compreender que as crianças que nós falamos, que sejam elas incapacitadas ou não, podem ser vítimas, mas também podem ser agentes. e também podem ser testemunhas. E todas estas perspectivas têm que ser consideradas. E têm aproximações diferentes, exigem skills diferentes. Finalmente, explicar que nós falamos sobretudo de tribunais criminais, o que para mim é uma honra, porque eu sou magistrado dos tribunais criminais há 43 anos, mas estas questões também se podem pôr nos outros tribunais, nos tribunais de família, nos tribunais de trabalho, e, portanto, o que faz com que o que nós estamos aqui a dizer tinha que ser adaptado consoante a área jurídica em que nós estamos a trabalhar. Por outro lado, eu queria dar aqui algumas notas sobre a nossa lei. Ficaria mal um magistrado não falar da lei. Para dizer que nós temos em Portugal uma lei sobre o maior acompanhado que foi uma revolução em Portugal, porque até desde 1966 até há cerca de 10 anos atrás, as pessoas com incapacidade eram pura e simplesmente afastadas, ficavam sem capacidade, não podiam fazer nada por elas próprias. Eram interditadas e, portanto, tinham um tutor. Há cerca de 8 anos, nós mudámos o paradigma e temos uma lei que diz que todas as pessoas são competentes e o que o juiz tem que fazer é procurar quais são as falhas que essa pessoa tem e depois supri-las com o apoio de alguém. Portanto, é uma mudança de paradigma e é uma mudança de paradigma que eu gostava de assinalar. Até porque muitos dos nossos jovens que estamos aqui a falar, a partir do momento que são maiores, têm um representante e, portanto, esse representante pode ajudar no seu contacto com a justiça. Depois, dizer que nós temos o Estatuto da Vítima. E o Estatuto da Vítima que nós temos em Portugal é a colocação do nosso Estado soberano da diretiva que falámos de manhã. E dessa forma eu posso dizer que nós já não precisamos de mais leis. Ou seja, é sempre possível melhorar, como é óbvio, mas nós temos os instrumentos necessários para fazer as intervenções que há bocado foram referidas. Por exemplo, o artigo 12 da nossa lei portuguesa estabelece garantias de comunicação, ou seja, os agentes da justiça têm que falar em linguagem simples e a pessoa pode ser acompanhada o menor pode ser acompanhado de uma pessoa da sua confiança e pode, inclusivamente, ter um intérprete. O artigo 15 diz que a pessoa tem direito à proteção, designadamente a apoio psicoemocional. O artigo 17, eu vou ser rápido, o artigo 17 estabelece condições de prevenção de vitimização secundária e diz que os menores com deficiência devem ser ouvidos em ambiente informal, sem aquelas togas ou cabeleiras que nós usamos nos tribunais, e ao nível em que todos ficam ao mesmo nível. O artigo 18 estabelece gabinetes de atendimento para informação às vítimas, e eles existem, quer a nível da Polícia de Segurança Pública, quer a nível da Procuradoria-Geral da República, que é aqui mesmo ao lado. Depois, o artigo 20 atribui o Estatuto de Vítima Especialmente Vulnerável a todos os nossos utentes, porque são pessoas que não têm capacidade para se fazerem entender, o que significa que têm, sendo vítimas consideradas especialmente vulneráveis, tem que ser objeto de uma avaliação individual, que nós falámos hoje de manhã. Normalmente é feita pela polícia, o que nem sempre corre bem, e têm também direito a medidas de proteção. O artigo 22 estabelece que os tribunais devem ter em consideração a maturidade, a idade, as condições intelectuais da pessoa, o que é importante para o nosso contexto, e que essas pessoas, em qualquer circunstância, isto é uma correção que foi dito de manhã, podem ter um patrono, podem ter um representante. E, finalmente, os artigos 23 e 24 dizem que estas pessoas devem ser ouvidas por videoconferência e, preferencialmente, e na maior parte dos casos, como regra, é obrigatório ouvi-las através de um mecanismo que se chama declarações para memória futura. Isto significa que o juiz tem que marcar um dia, antes da audiência formal, no qual estará a criança, o juiz, o procurador da República, os advogados e a criança, e mais ninguém. é gravado o seu depoimento e é esse depoimento que é depois utilizado em tribunal. A criança não é obrigada a ir ao tribunal. Se o advogado de defesa entender ou pretender que a criança vá ao tribunal, tem que argumentar e muito para que se quebre essa regra. E, portanto, é uma regra importante. E, finalmente, o artigo 28, que diz que nós devemos ter, Portugal deve dar formação especializada aos seus agentes da justiça. Não vou citar mais artigos, mas agora queria me pronunciar sobre os problemas. Na minha perspectiva, nós temos aqui um problema geral, que é um problema de acesso à justiça, que é um problema geral, embora mais agudo, mais severo relativamente a estas pessoas, não é? E é um problema que tem que ser resolvido, desde logo, pela disseminação da informação. A maior parte das pessoas não conhecem estas normas que eu acabei de dizer. E, portanto, o primeiro passo, a primeira resposta que nós temos que dar é disseminar a informação para que as pessoas saibam os seus direitos e para que os possam executar. Depois, e agora mais como juiz, nós temos dois problemas, que é o problema da comunicação e o problema da credibilidade. O problema da comunicação faz, desde logo, a avaliação que é feita pela polícia e depois, no fim, vou contar uma história, digamos assim, verídica de como é que eu resolvia o problema da comunicação. Finalmente, o problema da credibilidade, que hoje foi falado de manhã, nós temos de ter consciência de que qualquer um de nós pode ser vítima de uma pessoa com deficiência mental. Isto é muito importante. Nós normalmente falamos dos outros, mas nós somos os outros dos outros. E, portanto, se nós somos vítimas, nós não queremos ser condenados quando a vítima, quando o agente, não convenceu o juiz de que aquela pessoa tinha sido vítima de um crime. Portanto, a presunção de inocência é qualquer coisa que tem que existir, é uma cornerstone, como se costuma dizer, de qualquer sistema judicial, e nós temos que compreender isso. E, portanto, cabe-nos a nós pais, nós associações, nós Estado, criarmos os mecanismos para que a pessoa com incapacidade intelectual transmita ao tribunal aquilo que deve transmitir. Porque se não transmitir, é evidente que a outra pessoa tem que ser absolvida. Porque é isso que se exige num Estado de Direito democrático. Depois, eu agora queria falar de respostas. E relativamente às respostas para o problema, para além da questão da disseminação, temos o problema da simplificação dos procedimentos e dos despachos, que também se falou aqui de manhã. Eu concordo. Aliás, o Presidente do Supremo Tribunal de Justiça, onde eu estou colocado, tem feito reuniões com todos os magistrados pedindo para que nós usemos uma linguagem acessível, porque nem as pessoas sem incapacidade, muitas vezes, compreendem. Porque realmente o direito tem conceitos difíceis de transmitir. Por exemplo, eu, quando trabalho a nível internacional, tenho muita dificuldade de explicar aos meus colegas o que é um arguido. Porque em Portugal, ser arguido ou ser suspeito não é a mesma coisa. E, portanto, há conceitos jurídicos que são muito difíceis de explicar e, portanto, não sei como é que nós poderemos fazer. Hoje de manhã aprendi, e estou muito agradecido, que há um conjunto de símbolos que se podem utilizar, mas há sempre dificuldades. De qualquer forma, compreendo, concordo, que deve haver simplificação de procedimentos e que os despachos devem ser inteligíveis para as pessoas a quem são dirigidos. Quanto à formação, de facto, nós temos aqui um déficit, porque o Centro de Estudos Judiciários, que é a escola onde se formam os magistrados, os juízes e os procuradores, não tem nenhuma formação específica relativamente às crianças com deficiência, nem sequer para os deficientes, em geral. Tem algumas aulas sobre o Estatuto da Vítima, o que implica falar sobre algumas destas normas, e tem um módulo de formação sobre o Estatuto do Maior Acompanhado, mas é pouco, e, portanto, eu acho que devia haver mais formação inicial. Contudo, mais importante que a formação inicial é a formação permanente. E aqui eu penso que as associações têm um papel importante a desempenhar, porque nós em Portugal temos a felicidade de ter apenas 23 comarcas. E em cada uma delas temos um juiz-presidente, um procurador-coordenador e um assistente, que gerem a comarca, não despacham processos. Portanto, é muito fácil, por exemplo, a APAV, ou a FENACESI, ou à PPA-CDM, que é a minha, ir ter com eles e dizer que quer explicar ou quer entregar material sobre a sua realidade. Eu, aliás, quando era diretor-geral do sistema prisional, tive problemas com a justiça, no sentido de não me entenderem, não no sentido, e resolvi ir aos tribunais. Eu, pessoalmente, fui às 23 comarcas, reuni com os magistrados, expliquei quais eram as minhas dificuldades, eles disseram quais eram as dificuldades, eu expliquei quais eram os limites dos meios, porque os meios não são infinitos, e nós compreendemos. E, portanto, eu faço aqui um desafio à FENACERS e às outras instituições que contactem com as comarcas, e eu ofereço-me já para intermediar, no sentido de irem lá explicar aos magistrados tudo isto que nós andamos aqui a falar. Porque só assim é que os magistrados são sensibilizados para os problemas que nós estamos a falar. Porque, de facto, o que acontece é que alguns magistrados estão muito sensibilizados para estas matérias, mas, em geral, eu não posso dizer que isso acontece. E agora a história, para não me prolongar mais. Eu fui coordenador do Tribunal Família e Menores de Lisboa, que é aqui ao lado, e tive, desde logo, a possibilidade de intervir no projeto de arquitetura. Mandei fazer uma sala de visualização unidirecional, ou seja, só se vê de um lado para o outro. Então, para quê? Para conseguir compreender o que é que aconteceu quando se tratava de menores ou quando se tratava de pessoas com deficiência. Essa pessoa era colocada na sala, com diversos objetos, com diversas imagens. Do outro lado estava o juiz, estava o procurador, estava o advogado, e depois nós víamos a reação. Por exemplo, era um caso de abuso sexual. Ele brincava com bonecos completos, com sexo, e de repente tentava o pai e a gente via a reação da criança. Quando era preciso, tínhamos um pedopsiquiatra que estava connosco. Depois criou-se uma sala de brincar. Ou seja, no meu tribunal, isto foi já há muitos anos atrás, há quase 15 anos atrás, no meu tribunal havia uma sala de brincar, porque a criança, quando entrava no tribunal, antes de ir falar com o técnico, brincava com brinquedos normais e tinha uma assistente que interagia com ele, e isso fazia com que ele relaxasse. E quando fosse ter connosco, já estivesse com outra disposição para poder falar connosco. Depois, quando se começava a falar e a colher o depoimento, normalmente era assim: eu usava o futebol para os rapazes e a roupa para as raparigas. E então começámos a falar do Benfica, do Sporting, do Porto, e de repente fazia-se uma pergunta sobre o problema que tinha acontecido. E se ele não respondesse, voltámos a falar de futebol, até chegar o momento de ele responder. Com as raparigas era a mesma coisa, só que era com vestidos. Finalmente, e vou terminar, nós estabelecemos um protocolo neste tribunal com pedopsiquiatras, com a ordem dos pedopsiquiatras e dos psicólogos, que nos ajudavam a compreender os depoimentos das crianças e as situações que nos eram propostas. Portanto, eu acho que nós, em Portugal, não temos falta de lei, temos falta de informação, muito importante a informação. As pessoas não têm consciência daquilo que existe na lei, e isso é uma coisa que pode ser feita por todas as nossas associações, e depois realmente é preciso também haver formação, designadamente no SES, na Ordem dos Advogados, enfim, na Polícia, porque isso é um ponto muito importante. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much. You addressed many alternative questions I had in mind, so it was just a perfect invisible talking between us.
Portanto, Popeia.
I don't know what does it mean.
So you have not to do it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I have less work to do. And now I would like to ask you, Shoana, to explain for us what the Barnahus is, because it was coming up many times already in the morning, yet I'm not sure everyone knows it, and it would be perfect to really hear it from you, who is an expert of it, and to reflect on why is it relevant for us to learn from your efforts and in establishing this type of working in this European context.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today to discuss this important topic. Indeed, we've been sort of dancing around the word Barnahus all morning, and multidisciplinary interagency ways of working has been featured as well. So what is Barnahus then? Barnahus is a place. Its word means, thank you very much, it's an Icelandic word that means a house for children. It is not a place where children go to stay overnight. It is one location where different professionals come and they not only meet the child in that same location, they also integrate the way that they're working together to make sure that the process and the information and the whole setup is child-friendly, tailored for each and individual child and their case and their needs. And so the image on the screen here is an illustration of some of the key aspects of what goes into this important and valuable way of working. We're talking about bringing together child protection professionals, criminal justice, physical health, and mental health. And so what we're promoting at the Barnahus Network is that these setups are embedded in national systems. It means that when a child comes to Barnahus, it's not preparing them to go through different formal processes. It actually is the formal process. So some of the things that happen here include the forensic interview, a multidisciplinary team with representatives from all of these groups come together to prepare that interview. They share information, they start the individual assessment if it hasn't already been started. That same team continues to meet after the interview and long after to follow up the case, to continue to develop that individual assessment as the situation changes or as new information comes available. When that investigative interview happens in Barnahus, there typically is only one person in the room with the child, and that's the forensic interviewer. When there are cases that have where adaptations are needed to support communication, for example, then this may include a specialized support person, whoever that might be. The interview happens according to an evidence-based protocol, typically something like, if you're familiar with these protocols at all, NICHD or something similar. And in another room, the interview that's happening is being live streamed to a television screen where there's a multidisciplinary interagency team. They're observing this interview, and they're also able to contribute to how the interview happens through breaks or other technological means to communicate with the interviewer. That interviewer, by the way, is highly specialized and highly trained into doing these types of interviews on the needs of the criminal investigation and the child protection investigation, because what we're talking about here is parallel investigations into criminal justice and child protection. And they also know a lot about, or are highly specialized in understanding child development and what you can expect to hear from children depending on their level of development. And so that information that comes from the forensic interview, the interagency team has that information. They don't need to ask the child any more times that information. They can start already then to plan their service provision and to follow up the case. So that is a real speed run through what Barnahus is. It's about being child-friendly and accessible. It's multidisciplinary. It's teamwork and trust building, information sharing, having that standing platform and routines to do that process. It's about joint case planning and review throughout the life of the case, including that individual assessment. It's about child participation and information, specialized support for complex interventions, tailoring it to each individual child, embedding it into national systems. And here, I really want to emphasize that it is vital that a setup like this does not become another instance where a child has to go and tell their story again. It should reduce or eliminate as many instances as possible. There's, in the community of Barnahus, some people talk about it being just one day in a child's life. It might not actually be that, especially for children who need more time to participate in this type of investigation. They may need to come back, have a break of several days or several weeks or whatever, and come back to continue to tell their story. And that's not only for children with special needs. That can be for any child, really. So we're not talking about necessarily having one interview only. What we are promoting is that it's as few interviews as is necessary for the case, and to support that the child is having their full access to their rights to be heard and have access to justice. And so in promoting this way of working with many countries throughout all of Europe, we've come across a lot of the challenges that have been discussed today in multidisciplinary interagency teamwork, in identifying training gaps and tools that need to be put into place. I think I'll leave it there. I could speak this entire conference on Barnahus if you'd let me, so please stop me.
I just thought that still in this speedy, rapid way, as you were summing up the Barnahus project for us, would you mind to share your thoughts? What are the current structural and managerial challenges that your network or Barnahus as an idea as such is facing currently?
Yeah. So this really ties into some of the challenges that have been brought up this morning in terms of how do we actually, in practice, put into place the possibility and the routines and convince people that working in a multidisciplinary interagency work is worth the investment, worth the time, interesting. And I think on some level, it's quite an easy proposition in terms of it comes down to one simple idea, and that is working in the best interest of the child that you have in front of you today. And indeed, all of the different professionals who need to work with child victims of violence, they're all trying to do the best that they can. But the reality is, it's not quite so easy to translate that goodwill into good teamwork. And at the core, all of these professionals have a different idea of what success looks like for the case. All of these professionals have a different idea of how long any given step in a case might take. All of these different professionals have a different idea of the roles and responsibilities and what all the other professionals around the table should be doing with this case. And so then that starts to bring in a level of complexity that is not directly solved by putting a technological tool in place. It's not directly solved by putting a law in place. It's really a human issue. And so what we have seen work is taking the time and the resources to get all of the relevant actors to the table on an equal basis to discuss, should we work in this way? How could we make it work? What would it look like? What would it take for you to commit to working in this way with us? Some countries move a lot faster. Some countries move a lot slower. For every single country, it's a unique journey. It's one of the reasons why the Barnahus Network exists, because we learn from many countries' journeys. We provide an opportunity for different countries to exchange with each other about the conversations that they're having and that they had, so that they can get ideas of how to move forward. So that's another success factor here as well, the international collaboration on how to work in this way. Some other things that we've seen be successful here is having formal interagency agreements in place. And so this is one of the outcomes of bringing all of the relevant actors to the table on an equal basis to have these important discussions. By having this formal interagency agreement, it means that some of the roles and responsibilities are clarified. They will need more clarification as the work actually gets started, but it puts you in a really good position. The other important thing here is, because everyone came together to agree on this, a really important piece got started very early in the process, and that's the trust building. You need to have the trust of all of these different actors. It starts at the top, but it also continues down. The same process needs to continue, not just on the ministerial level, not just on the managerial level, but also on the practical level. But that interagency working agreement is a key piece. It can also be standard operating procedures, or it can be called many different things. Yeah, and you know what? I forgot to say a really important thing in my introduction, and that is we promote that Barnahus includes an inclusive target group. That is children ages 0 to 18. Many welcome a bit above 18, specifically those who have special needs. It's children in all of their diversity, which of course includes the target group that we're talking about here today. And so in Barnahus being a place where interventions are tailored to each individual child's needs, that is part of what we are promoting as well. I got sidetracked with Barnahus.
Thank you so much. And before we get caught up in this sometimes tricky street when we think about changing the perspective of professionals, and seeing how difficult it is, I would like to ask you now, Venera, to share with us maybe a bit of inspiring story or experience you have had with the children participating in the project, because as far as I know it, the children really wanted to be included into the national trainings, and I'm really curious, how did that happen? How did that emerge? How did you respond to that? And also how this participation of the children is going to be, or might going to be, shifting or changing the perspectives of the professionals in the trainings?
First of all, I don't know, can you?
It starts working.
It starts working? Okay. So when we started planning the child advisory board meetings and then the trainings that followed after that, I jokingly, more as a joke than as something serious, said to my colleague Sveti, who is here, probably we should include the children in the trainings. And we never mentioned it again, I think, and it was left as it is. And then I started working with the children. I was the facilitator of the meetings, and they, first of all, completely changed my perspective on some things, my perspective of how they see their rights and how they see the justice system and what they need to understand. They gave very clear insights and very clear instructions of what they actually need and what they need from us. And I believe that everyone in this room could agree with me that children have the right to express themselves on matters that concern them. And I was very surprised after jokingly saying we should include them in the trainings that they suggested this themselves. They were very interested, especially after one of the meetings where my colleague Sveti joined. She's a lawyer, and they could ask their questions about the justice system, and she explained very well how this system works. So they were even more involved after that meeting. And they expressed their need to join the trainings because we mentioned them. And from there on, we started thinking how to do that and how to do that in a way that would be meaningful and actually won't just... we were started to think how to avoid this tokenism, not just to invite the children to be there, but to actually participate and to kind of evaluate how the legal professionals are doing with the tasks we are going to give them in these trainings. And why is it important, according to us, for them to participate in these meetings? First of all, to truly understand their reality, because they are the experts on their own rights, and then no one knows better than children what is their best interest. Here, we discussed many important things today, and there is always two sides of every story. For example, sometimes children don't know that they might be a victim of a crime, but sometimes they also understand much better than every expert what they need. And if we combine these two things, them not always knowing if they're a victim and us not always knowing what's the best for them, if we combine these two things, I believe it's going to work great. And what I expect to happen and what we expect to happen is to see how the children's input might shift the perspective to more collaborative approach with the legal professionals, and to help the legal professionals to see children not just as passive recipients of protection, but as active rights holders with valuable insights, and to give the human face to every policy that we work for and all of this.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to open this floor in between us, and kind of taking your last thought, I would have this general question for all of you, which is that in your view, what is the most urgent capacity or mindset shift for professionals that they need today to better serve the rights and needs of children with disabilities in the justice system? Shona, please.
You know, it came up already earlier today. I think it was the Bulgarian participant who brought up the need for training on the prevalence and impact of this type of violence on this target group. And within the Barnahus network, we have some good experience here. We have a type of training, we call it base can. And what this is, it's basic training on the prevalence and impact of violence against children. And it's organized in a way so that there's lectures from top experts on this, there's seminar discussions, and then those who want the certificate in the course have to do a writing assignment where they pick a topic that is of high interest to them, and then they have a seminar. It's like a little PhD defend your thesis kind of thing. And the thing about this course is that we design it to be given to teams, multidisciplinary interagency teams, so that these teams can come together, the child protection, criminal justice, physical health, mental health staff, the multidisciplinary staff that brings all of this work together to work seamlessly. They all take part in this course together, and so they all get a chance to get the same information and have discussions on this topic in a way that supports their team building and a common understanding. And what we also do with this course is it is tailored to specific topics. So there's some lectures that are general about violence, but then there's some that are specific to what this group wants to talk about. So we have done an adaptation, for example, on online sexual violence. And so one idea could be to take this approach and use it in your national teams, specifically on reaching this target group that we're talking about today.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be seen as a corporative man, but I think, sincerely, I think we don't need a change of mindset of magistrates, because magistrates are normal people. We have sons and wives, and sometimes handicapped sons. So. And of course, we want to do our work the best way we can. And if there is someone that can facilitate our task, it is good for us. So if some organization is coming to me saying, listen, I have here some technology, some methods that can make easier your task with this kind of people, of course I will be happy. So what I think what is needed is, again, I'm going again to the same topic. We need to have more, at the beginning of our profession, meaning the prosecutor, the judges, the police, we need training, of course, some sensibilization for this kind of people, for these very sensitive persons. And then we need some, we need to be linked to the organization that deal with handicapped persons. This is very important for me. And as I told you before, I've been in the position of staying in the administration, and I went to the court speaking with the prosecutors and the judges, and they were happy. Everybody was happy. I mean, we are not. I mean, we should not be seen as a target, because we are normal people, and we want to do our work the better we can. So everything that can facilitate will be very well received. So it's up also to you that go to the courts and speak with the guys. I'm sure they will be received with open arms and a big smile, because so I don't think that is needed a change of the mindset. I know that I'm not a model of magistrate, because I have a particular story, but anyway, as I told you before, I've been in the position, so asking the court something, and it was very, very easy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brianna, do you have a point?
I think on that last thought, this is exactly this collaboration I'm talking about between everyone, between the legal professionals, between the children, between every other specialist. Everyone has their part to play in the whole legal journey, and this is the way to do it. Just to work together.
Thank you. And in Link, when I was talking about in the introduction about the equal treatment training guide, I tried to leave a note on the idea that it was a long process and a lot of managerial effort, let's put it in that way, to really make it a multidisciplinary process. And also in other deliverables in Link, we can really see, in my point of view, a really great achievement of how a multidisciplinary work can look like, but we also see how much effort and resources it takes. And for future projects that we are going to develop after this experience, and to nurture these best practices, I would like to ask you, what are barriers that you see which is preventing professionals in engaging effectively in multidisciplinary ways in your fields? And if you have any good practices or examples when something really clicked and worked, I think it would be really useful for us to know it.
Change is hard. And when you're asking people to work in a multidisciplinary way and to really do it, they have to change. One of the trainings that we provide is it's a multidisciplinary interagency team training. And what this training focuses on is looking at what Google and other very smart, well-resourced people have identified leads to good teamwork. And it also looks at the success in the United States doing the same thing with a similar model to Barnahus called the Children's Advocacy Centers. And through some lectures and small group discussions, this provides an opportunity for the different professionals in a multidisciplinary interagency team to discuss how common barriers to working together are manifesting on their team, how it's impacting the way that they work and the results that they're leading to for children and families, and to start to identify ways forward. We then engage them on a tabletop exercise, which has several purposes. It takes the conversations that we're having about teamwork and it makes it really practical. It's a fictitious case. They have to sit together and speed run through processing the case. They also have to figure out if they agree on what should happen next in this case and who has what responsibility. And that at the end of this exercise, we talk about it. We talk about disagreements that happened and what's going on in the case and how things developed. Then we also talk about how the dynamics in their team affected, how they worked together on this particular case. And a lot of times, one of the biggest challenges is having the most common understanding of really what is our process? What is the referral pathway? And it can look very different depending on exactly the details of any given case. So it then also gives an opportunity to, for this team, if they don't already have a written pathway or written idea of how things should be working together, it gives them an opportunity to start working on that. So very practical about the casework and about the teamwork and bringing it together. And I think it's just so important. We see time and time again in our work not only having the time to really work with these complex cases, but also having the time to sit together as a team and reflect on your practice. When you have that time to reflect and to build that teamwork around those reflections, that's where you can start convincing people that they can change, that this change is worth investing in.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, one barrier, of course, is the lack of resources. To be honest, if you go now to the court I spoke to you about, perhaps there is no more playing ground. There is no more technicians, because they are working free of charge. There was no money for this. This was made because everybody wants to do something better for this group of persons. Sometimes it's very difficult to have this kind of resources in the courts. So one point, lack of resources. We solve the problems a lot of times because we know the other. We are a small country, so we speak with the others, and everybody wants to do something good and makes the other happy. So this is no way. This is not the proper way to do it. But I mean, that's the reality. The second, there is a lot of work. If I am in a court and I should have, let's say, 50 files, and instead of that I have 200, of course I cannot work in the same way. Especially if you are in the first instance court. Because for me, well, I'm in the top, so I can do whatever I want because I will not be more inspections for me. So, but when you are in the first instance, somebody will go to see how many files you have decided, and of course this is a problem. And what have you written? If you have written correctly, if you have quoted many authors or many jurisprudence, and all of this is a problem. So, and the third, at that point, in this point, I am not completely in agree with my colleague, but I must accept that judges and prosecutors should understand that we are all in the same field, not up, not down. Everybody is one in the team, with different knowledge. That's all. But everybody is equal. This, for me, it's important. And let me say that I have worked in several areas: family, civil, criminal, and the approach is not the same. For instance, in the criminal, in the family courts, we are used to work together. In the protection law, we have committees, and we participate in these committees that have the people from from several areas. So these kind of magistrates are more open to work together. If you go to the civil, they just paperwork. So there is the understanding is not the same. So to understand that we are all equal when we work in the team is very important.
Thank you.
I completely agree with everything that was said, and now I am thinking, that's an insight I'm having in the moment, that earlier I was speaking about children's needs and how they describe them, and now I'm thinking, because yes, professionals need to work with each other, and probably the question they need to ask themselves is, what do I need to work with other people? Who can help me? The same way children express themselves in the CAB meetings, the same way professionals can do the same thing. Who do I need to help me? Why do I need this person to help me? How this will make the situation easier? And And that's it. And it sounds very simple. I know it's not, but it sounds very simple.
It's not simple, but it's critical.
Yeah.
It's critical to actually making multidisciplinary interagency teamwork work.
Yes.
Thank you so much for all the answers. As I mentioned, that I'm coming from this artistic background also, and artistic research is also multidisciplinary as its basis. And what I really heard when David was speaking today, I really picked up the word assumption when you were talking about that we are assuming sometimes that disabled people cannot do certain things, or you were talking about chaos at the beginning of the 2 years period, or you were talking about circumstances changing and then how it requires a very different reaction and action from the team. And when thinking about a multidisciplinary way of working, these three things really makes me think about us willing to be more okay with uncertainty, because multidisciplinary work shakes us up the methodologies that we are used to in certain disciplines. It makes us realize that things that we thought certain are actually assumptions that we are bringing from our specific scientific field and background. And whereas it sounds like a barrier that sometimes we are more stuck into our own fields, but I think it's also can be reframed in a hopeful way that from another perspective we can work with this uncertainty, and that's also a sense of being multidisciplinary. And I still have some questions, of course, but I thought that I could open now the floor to the audience and also our online audience to see if there are some questions, so I'm not monopolizing all the opportunities to question. Oh, okay.
Chaos, yeah, I'm fond of chaos. I spent a lot of my career creating it. One of the things I found very difficult over the last few years has been, I started my career as a teacher, and child-centered development was very much part of that process. But increasingly, I felt that what I've seen in more recent years is a much more simplistic model of transmission of knowledge as being the way to bring about change. In so many fields we hear these people need to be educated about this. We need to tell them what we know. And there is a very big model there, which is that we are the experts, we will tell you what needs to be done and you will do it. And I think in terms of, somebody with autism said to me a long time ago, I suddenly had a huge understanding that my autism is not as important to other people as it is to me. And they said my life changed when this happened, because I suddenly realized that everybody had other issues in their life that they were dealing with, including in their work. So how do we build capacity that starts from where people are, recognizing all the other dimensions we are asking them to consider, and not anticipating that they are going to rapidly move to the position we want them to be in, but it is what we want, not necessarily what they feel they need.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Well, I was thinking that while we were doing the national research in Bulgaria, and when I was asking the judges to tell me how they work with children, how they work on cases that are related with children being victims, and how do they listen to the children, one of the judges says, well, we really need help in order to improve our communication with children. But you know, our process, our criminal procedural rules are really formal. And the principle of formalism is very much guiding our proceedings. And if we somehow breach this principle, our decisions would not stand. They would not be stable from a legal point of view. So my question here is towards the magistrate. How do you do the balance between your inner willingness to help children and listen to them and communicate to them in order to see what is the reality of their case? And that's on one side. And on the other side is the rules that are imposed that you need to follow in order to stabilize your decision. And this is very much the formalism of the rules. For example, in Bulgaria, judges can talk with children, but just to raise several questions. They cannot go from the very beginning of establishing the need of the children. They cannot ask questions about what had happened, what is their disability. They can ask specific questions on the case, on the crime that happened to them. So how do you balance that? It's really challenging.
Yeah, difficult question. I mean, in Portugal, it is mandatory to hear the children upon 14 years old, I think, if the law has not changed. So sometimes it's mandatory to speak with the children. And for me, it was always very fruitful to speak with the child. Even, I mean, independently if she is an agent or a victim, it's always important. I have no problem with that. I've done it. I have explained it some minutes ago how I did it. I had no training. It was my sensitivity. And, of course, the proceedings are formal and should be formal. And there are some issues that are not easy to explain. Even to normal, between brackets, people, sometimes they don't understand. But now, in Portugal, we have a movement saying that we should write decision as simple as possible. That is the message. It is if you go to the review of the Supreme Court of Portugal, the first number is the president saying this. You should written short decisions, simple decisions that can be understood, because in the Constitution says that we are ruling the law by the people. So we represent the people. So the people should understand what we are doing on behalf of them. Sometimes it's not easy, of course, because there are concepts that we cannot destroy, but I think there is always a way to communicate what was the problem, what is the decision, and why we have took this decision. According to the penal procedure code, we have a change some years ago, according to which the judge have not only to say what was the evidence that made his mind, but he has also to explain the process that was in his mind. You understand? So he has to put in the decision not only the facts, not only the evidence, this person, or this document. He has to explain. It was this person because he says this, and he has some credibility, and I explain why he has this credibility. So, what I mean to say, and now we are in in the way to make a new reform of the penal law. And the idea is also to make things easier to understand, less complicated, because we have a lot of appeals, for instance, and the files took sometimes took a life to go to the end, special big cases. And so I think we are in a good way, and I think it's not very problematic to walk in the good way, step by step, of course.
I understand what you're saying, but I'll give you a very simple example. It was said today that very often children do not want to go to court, or they don't feel safe in the court or in the police premises, and they prefer to be interrogated at home. But for example, as per Bulgarian criminal procedural law, children could not be interrogated via video conference. So now the judge is required either to go to the child, which is not happening, or to insist that the child comes to the court and that he interrogates him. But the child is afraid. Imagine if it's a child with disability. Maybe it will be the case that it cannot go to the court. So now you have this formalistic duty that you cannot allow a video conference, such a simple tool that could help, and you still have to insist on the child coming to court in order to be interrogated. Sometimes they don't even interrogate them, they just need their presence there in order to fulfill the law. So this is what I'm talking.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, as I said before, this kind of people are, according to Portuguese law, these people are mentioned as very vulnerable. And according to this etiquette, they should be heard out of the, out of the trial, not in the court, of course, but in the normal room, without vests, professional vests, without the presence of the other people. So it will be the judge, the prosecutor, the child, and the lawyers. And that will be taped, and then we will go to the audience some days or some months ago. And as I told you before, there is some rooms where the children can play, so they have toys. So I think this is something that puts them more relaxed. And of course, it's always difficult to be in court, even for a normal person. Yeah. Some years ago, the people were saying that I have never been in a court, and that was a kind of very good thing. And I was replying, I'm going to the court every day. Anyway, I think that in this case of this group of persons, we have in the law rules that can solve that problem you are saying. And I think we are doing that. So this part of the issue is not a problem, because it's mandatory, and it is even easier for us judges, because doing like that, we don't have this kind of argument between the two lawyers and the assistants and so on. So even for us, it's better to do it in the very relaxed way, in another day, only with the persons that are needed. It's even better for us. So I think that's it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Well, I would just maybe add to this discussion. I think it's important to remember that, and I mentioned that briefly during our panel, that criminal justice is actually not designed to be justice for victims. And to my knowledge, none of the comparative criminal legal systems has justice for victims as one of the objectives of the criminal proceedings. So, and this is a sad reality, that victim is why this all is happening. The entire criminal proceeding should be about them and their experiences. They're the only ones who don't want to be there and have to be there because of something that happened to them. And unfortunately, criminal proceedings, because of how it's all set up and because of how the case law, how the legal tradition has developed in the past 60, 70 years, it's all about what is being done to the offender instead of what has happened to the victim. And unfortunately, this is how it exists at the moment, and this is what we're trying to change with this project as well. And that's to be more kind of focused on what is justice for the victim and not what is criminal justice. And we have, I use this as quite a recent example of my exchange with some highly traumatized victims in a very high-profile violent crime. And I was talking to the victim's attorney, to their lawyer, who was in a hearing. And after the hearing, the attorney was almost in tears saying, "I've never seen anything this terrible in my 20-year-plus career." So like the lawyer was really very much affected by what happened at trial. And then I texted one of the victims just to see how she was doing after that. And she told me, "Oh no, I couldn't go to the trial today, but I heard from other victims and they told me that it was actually very good, much better than they expected, because the judge was really nice." And so the fact that the offender was there, that the testimony was awful to hear from the point of view of even the attorney who was representing the victims were prepared for the worst. So they were already ready to go to that courtroom and to have the worst day of their life hearing the testimony of the offender. So they were absolutely prepared for that. And they were also prepared to be kind of disrespected and pushed to the side and for their experiences to be disregarded by the judge. And because the judge was nice to them that was a good day at court. And I think that this is really important, and it's really good to have judges like you who are sensitive, who understand these kinds of issues. But I think, unfortunately, I think you give your colleagues too much credit. And I think there's a long way to go with judges, and maybe all is perfect in Portugal. I'm looking and winking at my colleagues from above to confirm. I see that they say, yeah, all judges in Portugal are amazing. I think there's limitations of criminal procedure. I mean, you as a judge, you can only deal with the evidence that was presented to you. You can't really, you have to decide based on the case that's presented to you. You can't decide based on any external circumstances. And so that's your limitation, professional. And then obviously there are human limitations. Then there's limitations also to what prosecutors can do, etc. So I mean, unfortunately, we see that in some types of crimes like sexual violence, only 0.3% of victims see the offender convicted in the courtroom. So that means that very small percentage of victims actually get to the trial, get to that stage, and we can do a lot to help them achieve justice outside the courtroom or even in the courtroom without the conviction. So I think that this is just an important consideration to be had. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We have time to reply and then close.
Some moments ago I said that I would not like to be seen as a corporative guy, but of course I have a story. But first, in criminal courts in Portugal, you can deal with the criminal issue and also with the civil issue. And in some files, the judge has the obligation to give compensation to the victims, even if they don't have to ask. They don't ask. So you have to have a larger view about what happens. Of course, penal law is about preventing crimes, because when we sentence someone to the prison, you are sending a message to everybody. If you do this, you go to prison. It is also to prevent that particular person to commit another crime. But it's always to reintegrate the person. It is in the Constitution, and I have done it lots of time as Director General of Prison Service. But of course, the principal goal is the offense. Second, of course, there is we are more than 2,000 people working as judges. I cannot say that everybody is a nice guy, but I'm working in the courts for 43 years. 43 years. And what I have seen most times is that the lawyers, the problems of the testimonies and of the children and etc. is the lawyers, not the judges, because they should cross-interrogate and they should win the case. And sometimes they're doing questions very harsh. So the biggest problem, even for a normal person, is not the judge, it's the lawyers. Okay, some judges could be harsher, but anyway, the dynamic of a court session is more linked. I mean, if you go to the court, you are afraid of what? You are not the offender. You are not the victim. What is your problem? My problem is that they are going to make questions very difficult to me, and they are trying to say that I'm lying. That is my problem, and this is linked with the lawyers, not with the judge, because the judge is not making questions. Okay.
Let me interrupt now, because I think that the topic is really heated and the coffee is ready and exactly as hot as the topic right now. So I would suggest us to go to the coffee room out there and let's get into this debate all together and throw the desserts and everything. So thank you so much for the panelists. And thank you so much for the audience for engaging. And yeah, we have 20 minutes, 15, 10 minutes, 7 minutes of coffee break, and then see you back there.